It's funny for me to reflect on many of the videos I've produced in regard to my music-related coverage as of late, and realize that I've taken this inadvertent and completely unforeseen yet very pleasurable tour of Europe. I haven't planned, at least, to make my way around so many European groups in the last couple of weeks, but I keep finding myself in this place. Maybe because there's just so many recent releases, but maybe it's just because like the song has a love for Germany, I have a love for Europe. I've expressed that before when it comes to my music-related coverage, that I have a very special place in my heart for music within several different international markets, primarily Europe, and even more specifically than that, many of the artists that have been featured in the metal library from European countries. I've been really impressed by many of the bands I've heard, many of which I've given recognition to on this channel, either through a mention or through coverage, and of course I'll reference some here in the case of this video. And many of those groups I stumbled upon quite by accident, maybe in part because, recommended searches. I'm a metalhead, that music is just bound to pop up in the way your search results work, and especially on YouTube, that's where I tend to be introduced to a lot of these groups. But I've been very impressed by much of the talent that I've found in that area of the world. It's really impressive. I mean, we have, plenty of talented metal musicians and artists, broadly speaking, in America, but Europe has some real specialties, two of which I'm featuring today, even though one is very much a fresh listen. The other I'm very familiar with, and I've covered them previously on this channel, and some of you might recognize the names, immediately know who I'm talking about. But for some of you, you might not be that familiar with European groups. If so, you're going to be like me in terms of the main staple group here and get a fresh experience with Dartagnan. They are the main band credited on this track. I believe the video, in fact, debuted on their channel, YouTube channel is what I'm speaking of. They are, from my understanding, a German-based heavy metal / folk rock group. I'm not really familiar with folk rock, so this will be kind of interesting, but of course heavy metal, automatically enticing. It's from Europe, another attribute, of course, worthy of focus. And I was watching the live stream earlier that debuted in preparation for this video to get some background information on it. And it sounded like, what they were saying about having sort of a musketeer vibe. I thought that was kind of interesting. So again, this is a group I'm not really familiar. I can even see that in the attire. One of the posts that came out in advance of the song debuting to announce it certainly had that look in terms of a lead singer. So again, I'm not familiar with Dartagnan, and maybe you're not as well. And if so, maybe you are. Maybe you've been a fan for a long time. I'd love to hear what your thought is down below, maybe some of your track recommendations as well. I haven't given them much focus yet. I might on this channel. We'll see in time gone by. But fresh listen for me, and maybe a fresh listen for you. But for some of you who've been following this channel recently, maybe in the last couple of weeks, if not months, you might recognize another name on here. Of course, one I've given plenty of recognition to when I've covered European stuff, because she's always a name that's on my mind in regard to her talent. This is not only Dartagnan's piece. ZORA is featured here. ZORA, the lead vocalist from BLACKBRIAR, who I've been a fan of for a very long time. They're Netherlands-based, I believe, and they're a gothic metal group. Absolutely love them. They've got some of my favorite tracks, regarding my top listens on my playlist. BLACKBRIAR is an absolute talent if you've never listened to them. And I've covered very recently Fairy of the Bog. That was one that came out, I think, in December. And in addition to that, I've covered a recent collaboration she did with the, I forget where they're based. I think Norway? I might have that wrong, but Mortemia. They're another European gothic metal group. I believe a one-man act, really. But she did a collaboration effort through What Else Is There, which was a cover for another European artist. And she was, of course, excellent. I am really big fan of BLACKBRIAR, of course, broadly speaking. They're a very talented metal group, and they have some beautiful ballad numbers, but ZORA's voice is just transfixing. I love listening to her. I've never really heard... of course, I've come across many talented female lead vocalists in many different rock and metal groups, but I've never come across a voice like ZORA's. Just so elegant, natural, captivating. In the case of this track, she's collaborating with Dartagnan, and this track actually has a very interesting story behind it, in that of course, if you watch the live stream, I'll give you some background as well to the track's development, as well as some of the behind-the-scenes stuff with the video. But the track is actually based on a Scottish poem by Hector Macnell. I'm sure, it's one I've heard by name before. I've never really given it a deep look. But there's a historical significance to this piece, and from what I saw in just a quick skimming, the lyrics, in fact, feature lines from the poem. It's a very European poem in terms of the writing structure and the voice of the narrator, but it's a beautiful piece. And the history to it, again, I think adds a very interesting dimension to this song, which, BLACKBRIAR, I'm not, again, familiar with Dartagnan. From the sounds of it, they kind of play around with this as well with their song constructions, but BLACKBRIAR certainly devotes a lot of attention in the narrative elements of their work to European primarily based myths and folklore, and they blend that with beautiful vocals and usually a metal-tuned song. So I'm very interested to see, again, what this is going to sound like in regard to My Loves in Germany. I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and of course we can watch the video together as well as getting a first impression for the song, and perhaps maybe for, if you're in my situation, for D'Artagnan as well. And hearing, of course, Zora's voice, if you're familiar, I'm sure this will be a wonderful experience. And of course, as per usual with my music reactions, I will feature the lyrics, and if you so wish to read along with the narrative of the piece from a lyrical perspective, that will be superimposed in the video as we go along, so you can read that for yourself if you so wish. Alright, or you can just watch the video, of me, or maybe you can try to do both. Without further ado, My Loves in Germany. Here we go. Let's take a look at this. It's a beautiful interlude.
My love's in Germany. Send him home, send him home.
I really hear like the Musketeer vibe. That's great.
Send him home. My love's in Germany.
And the color tint adds a real historical dimension to this as well.
He may never see. Send him home.
He's brave as brave can be. Send him home, send him home. He's as brave can be.
Her voice is very familiar by sound, but I think the song's kind of demanding a different sound from her slightly in the energy. This is good. I don't know, I'm gonna have to look more into D'Artagnan, but folk rock might be up my style. Again, Zora's voice here just sounds so... Again, it's the same talent and the range, but... It's so unique here. I've never heard Zora sing like this. It's great. This is beautiful. Really is. They really spent a lot too on production. Very elegant. I like the change up here too. I'd love to hear future collaborations. This duet is really working for me.
All this life's no more for me, for Willie Slane.
Is that it? Oh, I want more. That's great. Beautiful adaptation of the poem, quite frankly. I mean, again, there's so many devices in here. For those of you familiar with this channel, I tend to cover cinema more frequently, so I'm very familiar with certain cinematic elements in regard to manifesting a historical picture, or at least one that has that presentation. So the color tint, the costuming, much of the production design here, again, is fantastic in regard to making it blend with the story of that poem and rooting it in an older vibe, as well as this lead singer's voice from D'Artagnan. I really like his style. His accent too is very thick, but I love it. And it really does, I think, mesh well with that Musketeer image. At least, again, was implied from that live stream, at least from where the angle that they come from with their work. But what a beautiful duet. And again, like I said, I've heard Zora sing plenty of times, so I'm very familiar with her talent and her capabilities as an artist. But there's something here with this song in regard to her voice. I'm not really sure how to describe it, other than it feels like the song is intentionally limiting her range. I think to give it this fresher look, to best blend it with the story. I've never heard Zora sing like that, though. She is a woman of many gifts in regard to being a vocalist. I'm very impressed with her. And of course, her costumes too are great, and her expressions for the camera work very well in regard to manifesting a romance poem with that fantasy history edge. That really works for me. It's just a beautiful piece. I mean, I'm very much entranced by not only Zora's voice, of course, even if, again, it has I'm trying to figure out, words here. How do I best explain the difference from what I'm familiar with Zora? Because it just has such a uniqueness to it. I'd love to hear your feedback down below as well. If maybe you know what I'm getting at and you can think of better terms to describe it. Because, I didn't come from a music background. I'm just, a music listener. Right. That's just how I enjoy music. I just consume it. I'm not the one in the artist seat, so perhaps certain musical terminology to best describe what's actually happening with her voice. You maybe better know it if you're in the music world. I'd love to hear maybe your feedback on what I'm trying to drive at down below. I would just say, at least for me, it feels like there's an intentional conditioning of the song that gives her... Okay, I'll say it this way. If anything, again, it showcases Zora's range. And even then, going into this, apparently I had no idea how far it can go. Even beyond just, her pitch. Which, of course, that's testament. If you've listened to BLACKBRIAR before, you know how high up she can go for a pitch. And again, that's also scaled back a bit with this track as well, which is fine. But it's so unique here. I just feel like it's such a fresh contribution from her. I love listening to Zora, but D'Artagnan makes her a very fun compliment. And again, the video is beautiful. Anybody else feel like, at least on the introduction, the way it was filmed, it's similar to BLACKBRIAR's music videos in the past as well, like Arms of the Ocean comes to mind, Until Eternity, like the girl at the window, the red hair. Zora's just beautiful, by the way. Again, I have a thing for European ladies, so I do notice that. I don't know. Again, like I said, it's the accents that entrance you, but with Zora, she's a beautiful singer. Like, I love listening to her. She's, I'm sure for many people, transfixing. Very talented lady, but God-given talent when you hear it, and she's like, my word. I love listening to Zora. Every work she does, I'm always excited to give it a try. But what a beautiful piece. Again, the video's gorgeous. It really does, I think, manifest the storyline of the poem in a unique way, but one that feels, again, very fitting to the spirit of not only, I guess, where D'Artagnan comes from in their work, but to the vision of the poem as it's written. But this duet is great. I would love to see D'Artagnan and Zora Koch do more stuff in the future. Their collaboration it gels so well, in my opinion. Beautiful song. And I would say as well, this gave me a nice introduction to folk rock. I'm going to have to listen to more, especially if I'm D'Artagnan. So don't be surprised if, maybe even tonight I'll look into some of the other work. I don't know. You'll see some videos, I'm sure, in the future for D'Artagnan, if I feel so inclined, which I'm kind of am based on this song. If it works as anything, it's a giant tease to listen to more of their music. But what did you guys think? For those of you who perhaps, maybe you're familiar with D'Artagnan, and you're like, oh, this is, of course, familiar with them in regard to maybe their capabilities as artists. Maybe you didn't, though. Maybe you're coming from the same position I am, and you're like, I've never heard of this group, nor have I really listened to much folk rock in my life. Nor maybe if you listen to much European music, who knows? I told you, there are so many artists in this realm of the world that are extremely talented, and they never, I'll tell you, it drives me crazy as much as I try and get my friends group, which is a very small social circle, involved in my music tastes. I always pick the niche groups. Nobody knows what I'm talking about unless they're on the other side of the world. I'm like, but then you're not in my general vicinity. But at least I can find you online and see that there's other fans out there. I'm not the only one. But I don't know. I keep trying to get my social circle hooked on the music I listen to. So I'm like, I'm the one who finds the talent. It's a lot better than most of the mainstream stuff. Again, America, we have some good offerings, but Europe has just really impressed me in regard to their music library, especially in the metal sect of music. But if this was the first introduction for you to European music or D'Artagnan, or perhaps Zora as well, I told you this girl's talented. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Or if this is a familiar listen, I'd love to hear your perspective on it as well. Beautiful track. Don't be surprised. Of course, ZORA will appear on this channel before. Like I said, I've covered BLACKBRIAR before. I'm waiting to hear some new music from them as well. But this was, again, it's so great to hear ZORA's voice. I love listening to her. Real talent. But dartagnan might make a couple of appearances as well. I can't wait to hear him again. Beautiful song. Absolutely enthralling video. Captivating piece. Loved it in every way. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.